And when has the government ever done anything that makes sense? You know, and that's, I think, the hardest part of getting your head around, is the fact that you've got a scheme that makes sense. The reason it does is because it was designed by people with disability. Right at its very heart, the Every Australian Counts campaign has driven this right from the start. So you've got mums, you've got dads, you've got carers, you've got husbands, wives, aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, people with disability, right at the very grassroots than when this started. So a lot of what they're doing, a lot of the rules, a lot of the way they do their business is all because people with disability have shaped this from the start. Okay, that's why it makes sense. I mean, even that goes back to things like how the services actually do their service. You know, quite often you'll see a support person just doing something for a person with a disability rather than doing it with them. So you're talking about, could be young people with Down syndrome or intellectual disability in a supported living. Support workers just walk in and do it. They won't actually try to teach them new skills. In the NDIS world, they've got to try to teach them new skills. They've got to build that capacity. Okay, it's a huge part of it. It's not good enough just to come in and just do the job. It's to come in there and do with the person you're supposed to be supporting. It's a big part of it. Your mainstream services, to be really clear, and this will probably affect you guys a lot, the mainstream services, ones you're going to butt up against is medical. Okay? You've got medical is responsible for medications and a whole host of stuff that medical system's always been responsible for. And they'll continue to be responsible for it. Even though the medical system at times is extremely frustrating, you know, and they do things that make you wonder. You've got the NDIS, who've got a completely different view, butting up against these old government engines. It's going to take time for them to start to come into line with what the NDIS is trying to do. They all have disability action plans that they're working on currently to try to change the way they do things. I don't expect the healthcare system to suddenly start producing apples overnight when they've been producing oranges for the last 30 years. It's going to take time. They're trying nonetheless, but there's going to be those gaps. Medical's just, you know, at times can be very challenging. And it's being aware of that, knowing what service is responsible for what. So, for example, a school is responsible for the academic attainment of the child. Okay, part of that is speech pathology. They should be getting speech therapy, even though they probably would see a speech therapist once a year at best. If a parent said, we'd like more speech for my son or daughter because they're actually falling behind academically, the NDIS would say no, because the school's supposed to provide that, even though they don't. Okay? They're supposed to provide it. But if that same parent said, we need to get speech therapy for my son so he can interact with his friends a little more appropriately on the weekends, that's fine. That's a social goal, okay, and that's outside of the academic system. So be careful when you're asking for stuff around that could be medical. You will see part of what the NDIS are doing is before, when the planning sort of process starts, you'll have access to someone called a local area coordinator. Their job is to go through that with you. Okay, so they should see if you've asked for something that they can't give you, and they'll say you probably need to reword that. They'll talk to you about it, go, what is it that you're asking for here, what do you need that for? And they'll see whether or not they can reword it so you can get that support. So it may not be being met very particularly well, but the way you've asked for it falls into that domain. You may be able to change the way you're asking for it. Does that make sense? So all that medical system, they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do. Same with transport. If you had someone who was capable of catching a public bus, no dramas at all, and you asked the NDIA to provide transportation because there was no bus route where you lived, there was no bus route around there, they'd say no, because it's not their job to replicate a bus service. They'll try and find another way around that. They won't just leave it at that, but they won't be able to fund it. Okay, they'll have to try and find someone who's doing that in the community already for free, so a transport service that's doing that. But they can't fund it. It's not their domain. Does that make sense? They'll draw a clear line and they'll say, this is where we stop. It's all in their operational guidelines. It says how much where they go and where they start and where they stop. And they'll stick to it. You can appeal it, give it a go. Some people have got appeals through. You know, if you're not happy with that decision, if they say they won't fund it. Transport's been a bit light, I'll warn you, that has been. The trial site feedback, most participants have said transport's a bit light. They'd like a bit more in the plan. Why? Transport's expensive. So it is a bit light, to be prepared for that. They are slowly improving it. They're taking on board that feedback, and they've upped it a bit, but it's still not enough. The feedback we're getting from most people is they still would like more. There is a way around that. They call that a core support need, and it gets into a pool of funds, so you can be a bit creative with it, but I'll talk about that in a minute. How are we going for time?
25 past 11.
I don't think I'll do the video. I'll skip it. It's just a video of some of the people on the trial sites talks about their experiences.
Can you see it on the website?
Yeah, you can see it on the website.